Hi Blender fans and welcome to Blender TC. In today's tutorial we're going to actually use merge distance to make the sphere you see in front of you, and towards the end of the video I'm going to show you how we actually created the sparkles in Blender like you see in this animation. Hi Blender fans and welcome once again to Blender TC, and don't forget, if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. Let's begin. So we're going to actually create the sphere as shown in the animation just a few seconds ago. So right, we don't need our cube. Right, there's two ways of getting rid of the cube. You can press the X key and that'll fetch up a menu like so, and then you can actually hit delete. The alternative is that you can actually hit the right mouse button and delete it that way. Just a couple of ways of deleting the default cube. I must have deleted thousands by now. What we're going to do to actually make our sphere is we're going to add in a mesh, and the mesh we're going to add in is an icosphere. So add mesh icosphere. As a default, the icosphere has not got that many faces. Say you want to actually you could actually use this method to make a football shape as well, but what we're going to do is we're going to add in we're going to change the subdivisions to 3, and what we're going to do then is actually press the tab key, which will take us into edit mode like that. We've got point select, line select and face select. Depending on how you've got your settings, it might come up at line select, but you want to be on point select for this tutorial. Control and B will fetch up the bevel modifier. Oops, sorry. Normally that is shown like this, so if we actually open this up, whether it's reduced or increased, and what we'll need to do is we're going to actually increase the width here to actually make this kind of shape. So we've got hexagons and I don't know, 5-sided and 6-sided shapes. It escapes me for the minute, but somebody is bound to tell me. Just leave a comment. So we do this until they actually sort of overlap. 0.9 is 0.09 is too far. 0.08 looks about right, but it might differ on your machine. So we've done that. We don't need this menu open anymore, so I'm just going to actually reduce it like so. And we go into mesh, and what we're going to do is use a thing called merge by distance. Go in mesh, and it's about somewhere down there, and we're going to do merge by distance. What merge by distance does, it removes vertices and actually collapses things together. So open this menu down here, and this is like a menu driven tutorial to a certain extent, but what we're going to do is increase this. So increase it to points. Well, just increase it slightly. As you can see, it says 0 surfaces removed down here. See, 240 removed, 480, and as you can see, if we hit this, you'll see them actually vanish up here. So there we go. You see them vanish. 640, and press it again. As you can see, that's 640 twice, so you know most surfaces have been removed. So just tick it back one. Have a quick look on your sphere, make sure there's no weird, and that's it. We made our crazy shape, and this is what we're going to actually use to actually reflect the glass in our tutorial. So pressing the tab key will take us out of edit mode. And what we're going to do is rename this one, and we're going to call this the sun. S-U-N. So we're just going to make that the sun, and we're just going to duplicate this another 2 times. So Shift and D, left click to fix, Shift and D, left click to fix. So we've now made 2 copies of this. So we've got the sun. The second one we're going to actually call the sun glass, G-L-A-S-S. This one we're going to call it sun frame. The one that's the sun, we want that to be a lot smaller, so if I go into actual X-ray mode, I'm just going to scale this down until it's a tiny little thing in the middle. Back out of X-ray, and these two, which is the sun and the frame, as you can see it's actually flipping between the two. We're just going to leave them as they are. Looking through our camera, what we can see is that it's in about the right place for our animation, so we'll just leave that. If for whatever reason it's in the wrong place, what you can actually do is press the N key to open up this menu, go into view, and you can actually select the camera and adjust it until it's in the right place, and then shut it back down once it's in the right place, which then fixes it. This box here is the outside of your, so it's like your screen. So right, the actual modifiers set up on our screen. So go into the actual spanner or the wrench like so, and we're going to add in a modifier. Because we've got the frame selected first, what we're going to do is actually make the frame. So I'm going to add a modifier, and what we've got is we've got subdivision no we haven't. Add a modifier and roll your mouse wheel down if it doesn't actually appear in this menu, and what we're looking for a thing called wireframe. So hit the wireframe and you get this like wireframe around our frame, and I'm just going to increase the thickness right up to about 0.06, 0.07, because that's where I want to set it at. So we've done our frame. I'm just going to apply that modifier because that's all I need to do, because I'm going to use that in my animation. Next, what we're going to do is actually select the glass. You can do that by actually just clicking through until it appears, but you could actually select your sun by accident as well. So select the glass. I'm just going to toggle the actual X-ray mode, because this will actually show the thickness of my glass. So hitting the wrench or the spanner again, add a modifier, and we're going to solidify this. I didn't really think about my mouse here, but we're going to actually hit the solidify button, and that fetches this up, and you just increase this to make it the thickness of your glass, whatever you wish your thickness of your glass to be. 0.06 looks about right. So back out of the actual X-ray mode, and we're about ready to actually start messing about with our sun now. So all I'm going to do, you can actually hide things by just pressing the H key like so. Alt and H will actually make things reappear, or you can actually toggle it by just hitting the little eye there. So that's what I'm doing, and I'm now selecting the actual sun. I'm just going to press the tab key to select my sun. If you've got everything selected like this, we don't actually want everything selected this time, so I'm just going to press the A key until everything is deselected. Press the A key, double hit it until everything's deselected, and then I'm going to press select up here and then put select random, and I'm just going to decrease this slightly, which actually means the amount that you're randomly selected. And then I'm going to scale it in by pressing the S key and just scaling these in, which of course will change the shape of our sun. I'm just going to just move a few bits and bobs because I didn't like the look of that one. Yep, that'll do for the centre of my sun. So there's my sun. Make everything reappear. There's your frame appearing, and there's my glass appearing, and with the sun in the middle. So we're about ready now to actually set up our, sorry about the background noise outside. Looks like somebody's doing some work, but never mind, we'll just carry on, and hopefully it doesn't actually stop your enjoyment of this tutorial. But there we go. The only thing with life is that things get in the way. Right, so what we've got now is we're going to renders properties. I'm just going to actually shut my door just to see if that actually reduces the noise outside. So back in a second. Oh well, back again. A little drink of coffee, makes you have a break, and back to it. Right, so we've got most things that are actually created for our tutorial. The only thing we haven't actually created are the actual loops that are going to go around it, so let's just quickly actually create those as well. And then what we'll start to do is add some of our materials. So I'm just going to add in a mesh, and the mesh we're going to add in is a cylinder. So I've just added in a cylinder. The default cylinder will do, and I'm just going to scale it to about there, and then press S and Z to scale it in the Z direction. S and Z, S and Z. Out that thickness, which will do to make my band that's going to go round my sun. But as you can see from the animation, we had 3 of these, so I'm just going to scale that down a little bit more, and I'm just going to hide the glass, hide the frame. In fact, I'll make the frame reappear because that'll give me some perspective. Let the frame reappear and hide the sun. Right, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to shade smooth this because I wish to, and next thing what we'll do is we're going to edit mode with the actual cylinder selected, and I'm just going to actually select the, go on to face select. Hold on, I'm in the wrong thing there, I'm actually in the frame. So what I'm going to do is actually select the cylinder, and I'm just going to rename it ring 0. So that's the ring 0, ring 0.0. I think that's the way it actually does it. Press the tab key to go into edit mode. Make sure you're on face select, and I'm just going to select that face on that side and this face on this side, and just press E to extrude, S to scale, and I'm just going to scale that in slightly like that. And I'm going to use a thing called bridge faces. So if you actually right click now, you get this thing, this menu appear, and you've got a thing called bridge faces, and what that'll do is just cut a hole straight through our cylinder. So bridge faces, bump, and there you have it. It's cut a hole straight through our cylinder, and all we need to do here is I'm just going to add some loop cuts. So Ctrl and R to add a loop cut, and I'm going to add 3 loop cuts. You can do this by rolling your mouse wheel or pressing the 3 key on your keypad, and then right click will fix them, and select the inside and do the same on the inside. 1, 2, 3. The reason we're doing this is when I add the actual subdivision modifier in a couple of minutes, what this will do is it'll actually bevel this edge and make for a better cylinder. So let's do that now. So press the tab key out of edit mode, add a modifier by hitting the spanner or wrench, and add a subdivision surface modifier, and we're just going to leave that set at 1 because we don't want too many surfaces, and we'll just apply that. So we've made our ring, Shift and D to duplicate our ring, and then S to scale just to make our second ring, and Shift and D, duplicate again, left click to fix, S to scale. So we've made our 3 rings. It's entirely up to you how big you want your rings to be, but that's it. I've made my 3 rings for going round my sphere. So we've got the 3 rings. Let's just call that ring 1, ring 2, and ring 3. So we've got everything created on our sphere. We just need to actually start adding some colours. So, or our sphere, or our sun, whatever you want to call it. And I'd like my rings to be a little bit thicker, so I'm just going to actually select all 3 rings and scale in the Z direction just to make them a little bit thicker all together. Yeah, that will do. So first of all, what I'm going to do is actually create the colour of the frame, then the sun, and then the glass last. But we've got to make sure that some of our things are now set up in our render, because at the minute this looks pretty flat, as you can see in our render. So let's start by applying some things. If you're actually in cycles, like I think it does in default, GPU, compute, we'll change this to Eevee, because this animation is done in Eevee. and we're going to actually use the bloom effect that is in Eevee for quite a few of the effects. So add ambient occlusion, add the bloom, screen space reflections, and open this up and add refractions as well. Motion blur if you want it, sometimes it looks good, and simplify also can look quite good. So we do all these because these actually set up reflections and all different kinds of things. So what I'm going to do is start hiding things first, because the first thing we're going to actually make is our sun. So let's just start hiding things. So hide, 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 and hide. So we've got our sun in the middle. What we need to do is add our material for our sun. So we go into the actual materials properties tab down here, and I'm just going to press new material, and we're going to call this sunbeam or sunlight or whatever you want to. I'll call it sunlight because it's going to be the actual sunlight. So go into your principled, and what we're going to do, you've got all sorts of different ones. We're not going to use the principal shader, we're just going to use the emission shader. So select an emission. Because we've actually got bloom enabled now, if we were to set this to 100 or 1000, as you can see, yeah, 100 might be enough. This will make our bloom in our scene, and that will make our sun. It's up to you what colour you want your sun. You could have a white sun, I suppose they exist. I'm just going to make it like a sun colour, and then we're going to actually, we'll make the frame reappear, and then we'll make our glass reappear. As you can see, the sun has now vanished because the other two things are not see-through or not made of glass. First one, we're going to actually make the frame, so I'm going to put new, and we're going to call this our frame colour, frame blue. I'm just going to make it a blue frame like I did in the animation you saw, and just select a blue colour, and I'm going to make it metallic by increasing the metallic. Take the roughness down to something quite low, just so it actually reflects. As you can see, that's reflecting the one light we've got in our scene by default, which will be very handy for creating the actual star effect at the end of this tutorial if you stay till the end. Please subscribe to my channel because it all helps, and hopefully one day I'll be able to monetize this and retire from my other job, which, let's say, is not my passion, but there you go. Right, next thing we're going to do is actually select the glass, press new, and I'm just going to make a slightly bluey glass. Oh, then again, let's just leave it white for now. We can always alter it. And what we're going to actually do is actually select the default glass in Blender, like so. And as you can see, we still can't see our sun through the glass, and the reason we can't see it is because we haven't actually enabled screen space reflections, which is this little point down here. So watch this, remember this, because without this it doesn't work. So hit that, and voila, we've now got our sun showing through our glass like that. Make our rings appear. It's up to you, you can actually make them the same colour as your frame if you wish, which I think I will in this case. So if we actually go to the frame blue, we can actually just click on the actual rings and hit frame blue. Or alternatively, what you can do is take away the colour, add a new colour, and make it whatever you want. Let's make it a slightly different blue, make it metallic, take the roughness right down again, and we could call this material, whatever we wish. I'll just call it ring blue or whatever, ring. And of course you can add as many different colours, so if you wanted all your rings to be all different colours, you could just actually ring blue. You could actually set a different colour up for each ring if you wish to. You know, it's quite easy to do. Let's see, ring blue. You know, you can actually set up different colours. If you want to add in a different colour for things, it's quite easy to do. Like I say, you just press the minus, which gets rid of the colour, and you just press plus to add a different colour in, and then mess about with it. So we've now got our actual everything done here. The only thing we haven't done is added some of the extra lighting. So I'm just going to actually select this world tab. You could add an HDRI in here, but for this tutorial I'm not doing that. I'm just going to change the actual colour right down to black, like so. And that looks quite eerie, so you haven't got a lot of light. If we actually press our 7 key and look from the top, I'm just going to change this colour back up to a lighter colour, which just means that we can actually see our camera, which is black. So if you've actually set this to black, you don't see your camera because it sort of vanishes. As you can see, it's vanished more or less. You know, now you can't see it, so that's the reason I'm just actually, at the minute, I will turn it black just before I actually render, but just so we can actually see things. Right, so we're looking through our camera. As you can see, there's not enough light there, so let's add a few lights. So I'm just going to add in a light, and the light I'm going to add in is a point light, and G and Z. G is our go key or move, and Z is the direction it's moving. So if you actually put G and Z to the top, we can move the light up to the top, and we can make it any colour we want. Oopsie daisy. Control Z to undo that. I didn't have my light actually selected then, so you've got to select your light so you can actually change the colour of your light. So I can make that a bluey colour and make it 500 watts. This will mean that we can actually get some reflections, not only off the sun, but off this other colour. Pressing the 7 key, and I'm just going to move it slightly forward, G, and to the left, just so I can get some strange reflections. And what I'm going to do is add in another mesh, add in another light, another point light, and G and Z, just to G to move, Z to actually restrict it in the Z direction, and going on our light properties, oh, in fact 200, it's up to you whether you want it to be white or the position. You can actually change things, just depends on the reflections you want on your finished render. And then we'll turn this to black again, just to actually see what it looks like with the light change to that. As you can see, it's added a bit more light there, but it's entirely up to you, and you can mess around for hours and hours with lights, but I would recommend that you actually get some good 3-point lighting, so which basically means that you're lighting from at least 3 points, so it casts different kinds of shadows. And we've got a sun up there which is pointing straight down. I'm just going to actually move that, so press the 7 key to look from the top. I'm just going to move it over here, and the colour of our sun is white. It's 1000 wattage is 1000. It's also a point light, so I'm just going to change that to a sunlight, and I'm going to point it at my sphere by actually hitting this, add object constraint, and track 2, and I want it to actually target the sun. That means it's going to point at the sun, so whichever way I move it now, it's pointing at the sun. But as you can see, it's way too bright, so I'm just going to reduce it to about 2, maybe 1 even. and then take away the other light, and you just move it round until you get the actual desired effect you want, which I think is there. Right, as you can see, we're getting quite a lot of nice reflections. This is going to be different from the actual one that I did in the animation, but it's entirely up to you the way you set up your lights. You can add 1,000 lights if you wanted. You could make some of these lights that are top and bottom, you can make them red, you can make them green, you can make them any colour you wish. You know, you can end up with some really nice but strange effects. It's entirely up to you what kind of colours you want. And normally the sun is like a yellowy colour, so I'll just add a bit of yellow to that. So we've now got our finished sphere, and if we render that, press F12, as you can see, fantastic, it's now working. Let's now do the animation stage of our tutorial. So we've made our sphere. Just escaped to get me back out of render mode. So what we're going to need to do is now actually move some things. So we'll go into animation to do this. Select the rendered tab. Let's look through our screen. So first of all, let's make the glass and the frame the same object. So press the frame, make sure that all modifiers are applied. As you can see, the modifier isn't applied for the actual glass, so I'm just going to apply that modifier. You always do this before you join things, because if you don't, you get some very strange effects. So select the frame, select the sun, and I'm just going to press right click there and join them together. The reason I'm doing that, it means that I can now make everything move just by actually turning one thing. So first of all, I want this to actually turn round like that. So what we do is we actually go into object properties. We're actually going to turn this on the Z direction. So what I'm going to do is go to the first frame, press the I key, which will actually insert a keyframe. You see these little dots here, and then if we press shift and right click, that then takes us to frame 250, and I'm just going to change this to, I want it to slowly turn, so I'm just going to change this to 360 degrees, because I just want my sphere to actually turn all the way around. Pressing the I key will make it turn yellow, which inserts another keyframe. So if we press now play by selecting thingy, I'm pressing the spacebar. As you can see, it starts off slow, speeds up in the middle, and then slows right down again. Now that might be the effect you want, but it's not the effect I want. So pressing the spacebar will come out of it. We'll select the actual frame again. What we need to do is we need to actually select the key, and you've got interpolation mode, and what we need to select is linear. The reason to select linear is then it will start off at full speed and finish at full speed. So there we are. So it seems to actually turn round just the way we want it. As you can see, the actual sun in the center is static, which is what we don't want. So I'm just going to actually now select the sun. So selecting the sun like so, and we're going to shift and left click, and we're going to do exactly the same. Go into its properties, set a keyframe by hovering over here, pressing I would set the keyframe, then shift and right click to the end, and we're going to actually put -360 and set a keyframe like so. Because we've gone in the opposite direction of our keyframes, what we can do now is we can actually press the actual spacebar, and you can see the actual sun will go in the opposite direction, like so. It's a bit easier to see if we actually just hide the frame. I'm just going to hide that. And the sun's too bright to actually see it. Let's have a look. Just turn the actual brightness of the sun down to something we can actually see. And as you can see, the actual sun is turning in the other direction, which will actually give the appearance that it twinkles. Just actually undo that, Control Z, just to put my brightness back. Alt and H to make everything reappear. But what else you can do is actually, with the sun selected, go into its properties, and we can make this one 360. Right, put in the keyframe. What I'm doing there is that I'm going to actually, as you can see, that's making it spin in 2 different directions, and take it to the end. Shift and right click. No, not selected. Shift and right click. Take it to the end, and I'm just going to change that to 360. Just put a keyframe in there. Just make sure all the keyframes are in place. And as you can see, the actual sun is now turning, and it seems to sort of twinkle a bit. The only thing is we haven't set up is linear, so that's now going from slow to fast and back to slow again. So interpolation mode, make it linear again, and that'll get a, as you can see, that sun is moving quite uniform. In another interpolation mode, you've got a key interpolation mode, and you can use a thing called bounce, which will make for erratic behavior. So we'll do that. So key, interpolation mode, and then bounce. So you can tell it, you know. I'll edit it out anyway. Aren't you? Why not? Alright. Right, making some porridge. Yeah, it's good for her. Because you're selecting the actual bounce feature, and this will actually make the actual sun bounce about, which actually gives a more realistic sun. You can't really see it, I know, but let's just hide that. As you can see, it seems to actually bounce about. And depending on how you want it to twinkle, you could maybe change this to a 1,000. Right, because it doesn't matter about it actually moving erratically. I know. Because of course it's the sun. Right, Alt and H to undo. So we've made our sun, we've made our, hold on a minute, changed my sphere to 1,000. I didn't want to do that. I just want that 360. Aye. It's the sun I wanted to be 1,000. 1,000. Aye. Let's actually make it twinkle a bit more. There we go. Right, so last but not least, what we're going to need to do is actually make our rings turn round the sphere in the middle. So I'm just going to quickly set these up. So we're going to actually set the keyframe to interpolation mode at the end, but first of all let's set up the actual rings. So this one I'm going to actually set to 0. We're going to set all rings. I set a keyframe for all the rings at the beginning because they all start off more or less in the same place. You could set them off at different points, it's entirely up to you, but we're going to set it off for this tutorial at the same point. So going to the end frame, shift and right click. What I'm going to do is actually just turn these by 180 degrees, which actually is quite effective actually. So ring 1, I'm going to change it on the X to 180, 180, press I, and then select the keyframe. If we actually just set that, it just goes slow, speeds up in the middle and it slows back down again. So interpolation mode, and we want it to go linear, so it goes the same speed all the way round. So its first ring's turning like that. The next ring, or ring 2, I'm just going to make that turn 180. Right. Oh gosh, 180. Press the I key to fix. So we've got one that's turning that way and one that turns the other way. And the interpolation mode needs to be turn to linear again, interpolation mode linear, just to make it work. And the last ring, which is that one, go to the end frame. I'm just going to make that 360, right, and 360, right. So it's going to move twice as fast. Do I set it to 360 on the Z as well? I don't know what this will do. And interpolation mode we'll set for linear again, and something looks a bit odd about that. I'm just going to backtrack one, take it to the end, set this to 0 and see what effect that has. Yeah, that I like better actually. Right then, so that's more or less our animation finished. F12 just to render what it looked like, and finally let's add some sparkles to our animation. So for this I'm going to cover something that I very rarely cover in tutorials, but it adds some really nice effects to things. So back into our modeling window and just select this. In fact, I would do it on our animation because you can actually get to see what it's going to actually look like in the finished product. Right, so we're in our animation window. What we're going to do is, in fact, we're not going to go in our animation window. We're going to actually go into a thing called compositing. The reason we're going to go into compositing is this is where you can add some of the actual sparkles or some of the fancy effects that you see in some of the films and things. And what we're going to do is hit the compositing tab. Now this is what scares people, because you actually hit the compositing tab and it's just blank. There's nothing there. So you think, oh god, what have I done? There's something wrong. But that's because you haven't done this thing up here, which is the actual notes, and just put use notes. So what we've got here, we've got the actual, that's the actual render result. That's the compositor. Just move it to one side. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add something special in between. So we're going to add in a filter, and the filter we're going to add in is a thing called glare. So adding glare, what you've got is you've got streaks, medium, all sorts of things. So if we actually hit it on streaks, which is the default, press F12 to actually render. As you can see, that just adds the a simple star. And I just shut this render off. But what we're going to do is, you've got a thing called a simple star. You can add a fog glow. Depends what kind of effect you want, you see. That's a fog glow. And you can actually affect the brightness. But what I want is the actual simple star. And I want it to be at 45 degrees. 3 iterations, because I think that looks quite good anyway. And as you can see, that's actually added our twinkly effect to our animation. And if we actually just go on a different frame, say, let's just go in left, F12, as you can see, we've got a different effect. And depending on your light setup or what you've got set up, it depends on how things will reflect light and how shiny things are. So let's just render that out and see what it looks like. To set up your setting up your render, that's what we'll do next. So back into modeling or layout. I prefer actually layout. I've always preferred layout, but you've got layout. So what we can do is actually go into a thing that looks a bit like our printer here. Put your output of your actual file. We don't want it to be pink, because then it'll do hundreds of different images, well 250 different images. I'm just going to actually select this back 1 to 249. The reason I'm doing that is because, let's have a look at this. I want it to look like it's at the minute we've got the same frame at frame 0 and frame 250. I'm just taking that one frame out just to make it a bit more smoother a transition when it gets to the end of the frame, like so. And what I'm going to do is now I'm going to change the ping, change it to a FFmpeg video, decide where I want to save it. It sets to default for temp. You could actually just select your desktop if you wanted your actual animation to appear there. I don't particularly do that. I tend to put it in the place where I've saved me actual animation, and that of course in this case is Soulcore, which I've added to my favourites there. And I'm just going to give it a name, and I'm just going to call this Sun Test, and just render it out. So I accept that. As you can see, it's put thing in called it Sun Test, so it's going to actually save all these frames to that actual format, and that's the actual pathway. Right, so stop my animation by pressing the thingy, and we simply go down to render. Did that by actually using my mouse wheel, and just render the animation, which I'm going to do now. So render animation, back in a minute. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed my content, and let's just render this out. And there you have it, the render is done. Please subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you can use this in something useful. I think I'm going to actually put this into a room and make it the central power core of my spaceship when I've made it. But that's a tutorial for another day. So hope you enjoyed this. This is Blender TC signing off, and glad you could join me for this tutorial. Bye for now.